The Revenant is a creature that I would call a tremendous miscalculation. Getting a good look at it, we can see that at one point this thing had a very much so humanoid form. However, what it has turned into is going to be exclusively in your nightmares. So with that set up, let's dive into the lore and morphology of a soldier turned demon and learn about what happened here and why in Doom Guy's name would anybody want these things flying around. First and foremost, yes indeed, they are going to be human, or really were going to be human. In Doom 2016, soldiers volunteered to be turned into revenants. Upon sacrificing their humanity, they would become inhumanly strong, inhumanly fast, and inhumanly ugly. It should be noted that before I get some angry comments about inaccuracies, that in the original Doom games, the revenants were actually going to be destroyed demons. They would simply be pieced back together and then sent right back into that meat grinder with some cybernetic enhancements. Still didn't stop Doom Guy from tearing apart those reclaimed pieces, however. Anyways, we're going to focus on Doom 2016 as it makes it much easier to see all the individual parts and changes of what's actually going to be left of the human form and kind of see how it changes biologically, which is, in my opinion, exceedingly fascinating. Soldiers would volunteer for the Revenant program, and upon discovering the uses of Argent energy, it became clear that humans would change in the presence of the energy if they were exposed to it enough. And this energy has a name. It was called the lazarus wave. So what changes were going to be experienced by these soldiers who, I keep saying volunteered, but they weren't really volunteered. They were more than likely voluntold to join up. Well, a lot of painful experiences await. Upon repeated lazarus wave exposure, the body began to undergo changes that might be presumed cancerous in normal circumstances. Specifically bone cancer in this case. The lazarus waves seem to have a specific effect on the osseous proteins. The isotopes the waves are composed of would specifically induce these changes that would cause the skeleton to grow very rapidly. More than likely, it would grow in circumference as well as length. As you could imagine, this would be tremendously painful to the soldier. However, the reason it was painful is not just related to the actual bone growing and kind of like pushing into new areas of the body. No, the real pain comes from the fact that the growth happened so rapidly that it literally stretched and tore muscle away from itself and from the sites on the bones that it was connected. Eventually, however, even the skin's elasticity would not be able to keep pace and would rip apart, exposing muscle underneath the surface. The issue with bones growing as fast as they did, besides what is stated above, is that the joints themselves began to fall apart. So, working from the feet up, let's cover exactly what this mega cancerous bone growth has done to the person, but also what are some of the other morphological effects that have cascaded as a result. Starting with the feet, you may notice that they are quite large, and that's because they are quite large. But unfortunately for the Revenant, having large feet doesn't mean a thing because most of the pelvic region is going to be decomposed. Bummer, dude. The bones have been lengthened just like the rest, albeit the skin was able to keep up and stretch in this area as the tarsal bones did not grow as much, so they did not tear the skin completely. However, there are some wounds that can be seen on the skin because clearly it may be decomposing like a lot of the other areas concerning the body, or at least concerning the softer portions of the body. Moving up the leg to the calf region, we can actually see the original connection point of the skin to the knee area. The skin appears to be ripped at about mid-calf from the knee, showing that the leg has increased in size roughly about 33%. But we can see the exposed bone in the area, which is going to be much thicker, and clearly, because it's thicker, it's going to be much stronger than normal human bones that would exist within our body. Near the area of the knee is where the adjustments had to be made. Again, I referenced the connective tissue as the ligaments and tendons of the leg were snapped like rubber bands. Because of this, the knee itself would not be able to function properly, so the UAC equipped the Revenant soldiers with artificial joints that run on the outside of the knee, and this is what's going to allow the creature to walk, jump, run, do whatever. The thigh area is pretty interesting looking, as you can see the effects of the skeletal growth that it had on the quadricep muscle. Basically, looking at it, the muscle was bunched up near the knees of the person and stretched into a sinewy mess near the pelvis. When the femur exploded in growth, the quadriceps stayed with their strongest connection point, which left the top of the leg quite bare of muscle. There are still some connection points, but to this, the muscle would really be unusable and not function properly. Again, circumnavigating the problem, the artificial joints that run on the sides of the knee appear to run very closely to the femur and up to the pelvis, where another artificial joint has been constructed. These joints exist and are powered as well, but we will get to that momentarily, how they are actually going to be powered. Overall, this change appears to have increased the length of the femur by, honestly, give or take a few percentages, but I would say almost 40%. 100%. When we come to the pelvis, the pelvic floor and abdominal muscles are gone. The connection point that the femur bones used to sit at has grown so much that the bone appears to have been forced out of the hip connection point, so the hip joint now sits on the outside of the creature, outside of the pelvis, and is fused by another artificial joint. Due to the bone growth in the area, it's pretty clear that the circulatory system has been massively disrupted in the person, so the organs in the pelvic and abdominal region now sit exposed because the blood could not get to the skin and any of the organs in the area, so it has just really turned into a mass of rotting flesh and rotting organs. The spine, just like most, has increased in size, leading to a much longer thoracic structure. So we are just going to cover really the spine and ribs as a unit. All in all, the spinal vertebrae would be stretched, more than likely snapping the spinal cord in the process, leading to paralysis of the creature. The spine continued to grow, and while it did, so did the ribs. As they both increased in size, this gave the Revenant a much larger chest, which in turn ripped more skin. As the skin was stretched, this caused it to die, leading to a decomposition by microbes in the area, just like everything else. And this is going to explain why the organs are clearly exposed and out in the open, lower down in the, torso area. Moving on to the shoulders, it appears that they, along with the upper arms, were able to keep with the growth somewhat. There is tearing of the bicep and tricep muscles from the elbow region as the humerus grew, and the deltoid muscles were going to be a much stronger connection point to the biceps and triceps, so it eventually just ripped away. Once we get to the elbow, however, it's clear to see that the arms have actually lengthened quite a bit. The connective tissue around the elbow and the connective tissue in the elbow are going to be completely ruined and inoperable. Due to this, the UAC has also installed an artificial joint in the area to allow movement of the limbs. Moving down the forearm, it appears that the lengthening process has left the muscle in the area stretched to maximum capacity, but it is still hanging on and appears to still be operable. This is going to lead us to the hands, where the fingers, just like everything else in this meat suit, have been stretched to their maximum capacity. It appears, however, that the tendons and ligaments in this area are still operable, as the creature is very clearly able to move its hands and grip objects, but the skin here is quite damaged because, as per usual, it could not keep up with the quick growth spurt that the person experienced. Then we come to everyone's favorite portion, the head. The head on the Revenant is, as to be expected, the most important structure. But first, morphology. The skull structure has been changed, and it appears that concerning width, it's been increased, which I can only assume must be outwardly, because inwardly, this would go ahead and crush the brain of the person in the process. So assuming that it is outward growth, the head has grown to become quite disfigured. Every bit of bone, like the cheekbones and the area surrounding the eyes, has increased in density, which I actually find pretty interesting, as it almost makes it appear more ape-like. The top of the head has become more like a dome and has completely ripped through the scalp of the person. The teeth have also become sharper in the process. Overall, this has really left no skin on the head, and the Revenant is basically, its head meat is just going to be red and fleshy, and that's just what's going to be left over. The eyes themselves have turned gray and lack really any sort of iris. Odd how it can see, but much like the other demons, clearly they must be able to take in some sort of visual information, either that or they seem to sense you in the area. So physically speaking, this creature is a mess, but internally it's kind of a cool process. So going back to the brain for a moment, clearly must be intact. Cybernetic enhancements exist all throughout the body, but an argent charged neurochip is implanted at the base of the cerebral cortex. This will relay electrical impulses from the brain, which is going to be very important, as a spinal cord really can't do the job anymore. The body does not run by muscular impulses, but rather the artificial joints located throughout the body. This will move the limbs, allowing them to run and jump from area to area, as well as grab you. The chip also controls the jetpack on its body. Due to it having a direct connection with the brain, this will give the creature very fine control over jetpacks and the rockets that it fires, considered to almost be the same as if you were to look in a direction and think, I want to go there. The jetpack would fire up and take you there as if you were moving yourself. It's kind of interesting, but the joints of the body almost operate like Mjolnir from Halo. The thought of moving is kind of what moves you. You can't actually physically move, you think about moving, and then the chip relays that information to the joints so that you can actually move. These enhancements have resulted in an extremely quick creature, but the bone growth and size and density has resulted in a strong creature as well. Moving almost at the speed and agility of an imp, the Revenant is not to be trifled with in combat. This quickness coupled with flight will make it a tough opponent to bring down, but if you're not paying attention, it might just pull one over on you. Here we can actually see an example of its strength. When a Revenant kills you, it will jump on you and rip off your arm. The armor of the Doomslayer cannot negate the strength of the cybernetic enhancements of the Revenant, as this is probably going to be a couple thousand pounds pulling on your arm. After it smacks you around a little bit with the bloody end of your arm, it will then punch you. This is going to presumably cave in the helmet and skull. It is able to do this by the increase in bone density coupled with the joint enhancements. And if you were a normal person, it would probably just tear you apart on the spot. However, let's be real, you are the Doomslayer. There are plenty of ways for you to glory kill this creature, and most involve either blowing it up or taking its head out of the equation. You can either knee it the face, use its own rocket launcher to crush its face, that's my personal favorite, or send it up in the air and cause it to explode like a bloody piñata, showering the place with bits of mostly bone. Overall, there is a reason this creature exists as the Doom cover art. It really is a terrifying demon to anyone but the Doomslayer. Standing at about 10 feet or 3 meters, I would have to say that this creature in its jetpack and overall bone growth would be anywhere between 400 to 500 pounds or 181 to 226 kilograms. I did not forget the metric conversion this time. So for you and I, the Revenant is nothing to be taken lightly, but the Doomslayer, it's just another demon that needs killing. So I hope you enjoyed my morphological breakdown of the Revenant. Below, I do have some information that I'm about to tell y'all. If you want to click off the video, I don't blame you, but if you kind of want to know some other stuff, I'll let you know right now. I think that there is going to be a part 2 going in depth about the background lore of this, as it's really cool, and I would like to cover more of its origins and how it came to be. I'm not saying 100% that'll happen like this month, but I'll see what I can come up with and make a determination if it's enough info to make a video. Although Ollie A seems to be able to make videos about nothing, so there's hope yet. And I'm just picking on him, guys. I've never actually really even seen an Ollie A video. Anyways, good news. I figured out how to get my live streams up without them crowding my regular videos, so I have created a playlist containing all those videos, so if you get bored and want to watch a live stream that isn't live, you'll find them in that playlist. I will drop my Discord, Twitter, and Patreon link in the description. Per usual, I would like to thank my patrons. At the scientist tier, we have Layla Alizarin, and then we have Master BC. Next up is A. Laurentis. Our residents are going to be G. Anderson, Richard Muhlenberg, Alex Parks, and I'm going to screw this name up, Miss Militaria, or is it miscellaneous? Let me know down in the comments. Our geneticists are going to be Divine Whisper, John Russo, Andrew Lawson. Our Masters in Biology peeps are going to be Adam Hartswick, Brian H. Briggs, Cameron Smith, Javier D. Rodriguez, Laughing No Skill, Scott Grant, and the Otterman. And last but not least, our holders of their Bachelors of Morphological Sciences are going to be a Big Fat Snake, a Higao Comics, Average Soul, Dustin Ellis, Eric Scott Gillies, Immature Cape, Jacob Impasoni, Joseph Radical, and Natsuki Chiaki. Thank you everyone for your continued support. Oh, and just a quick sidebar. I think YouTube may not be sending my notifications I post to you guys. In fact, I actually know they're not. I did a test on my Discord, and a lot of people said that they weren't getting the notifications, so it's a miracle you're even watching this right now. If you do have the bell clicked, but you aren't seeing my notifications, you may have to re-click it after I talked with the Google representative. He said it could only help, so if you want to do that, excellent. If not, totally understand. But that's going to be it for this episode, guys. I hope everyone has a great day, and I will see y'all in the next one.